Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. We have some of the awesome news coming from the front lines. Yes, those happen kind of rarely for Ukraine, but today it is the day. I'm speaking about the Kursk region basically, and there Ukraine started the limited counterattack, regaining some of the territory. Here's Kruglenka village, not a big one, but every village in the Kursk region is crucial for defense. Kruglenka is not letting the Russian army to cut all of those settlements. That's why for Ukraine this flank is crucial, and also terrain, I wouldn't say it's good for defense. For example, if we compare it to the area near Kositsa, there is the valley with lots of the small rivers, hills, holes. This time of the year for Russia it's very hard to advance here. Plus you may see also many of the villages which Ukraine uses for defense. And for the last several days Russia ceased their attack attempts. Before they had the attack in this direction, they gained some of the territory, but today Ukraine responded. We also understand that Russia loses many of the North Korean soldiers. Yesterday the information was published that North Korea might send 8,000 more soldiers to compensate those losses. And as we understand, Russia simply doesn't care about the lives. The only privilege North Korean soldiers have is they've been treated well in the Russian military hospitals, much better than Russians themselves. And you know guys, we have the report from John Kirby that North Koreans commit self-zeroing or self-cancellation just not to get to Ukrainian prison. Well, it seems like they have this order from Kim Jong-un direct. And you know that most of those soldiers, they're just brainwashed fanatics, being raised in complete dictatorship for years and years. They're like living robots, zombies in many of the cases. Especially then we see how they attack just across the fields walking towards Ukrainian positions. What is happening in North Korea is just crazy, my friends. That dictatorship should be gone in the future, and it will be gone. Sorry guys, I applied my own censorship. There is a North Korean who is no-go. Now soldiers found this piece of paper with true propaganda of North Korea saying that death is not over, it's just a beginning of the way of the true warrior honor. So we have the facts that definitely they cancel themselves. If we go to the Deep State military map source, here they also changed map a little for today near Pogreb Key. But Michael 73, the previous expert who published the map, maybe has more information. Because as usual in a deep state you have like 2 days delay, not to give the enemy the information right away. And yes, legacy media say that Ukraine is not forever in the Kursk region. There is the high probability for Ukraine to withdraw the forces kind of soon during this winter from Kursk to avoid heavy losses. But at the same time, the Russian channels are just screaming about the new Ukrainian offensive, which might start in a matter of days. They say like in the very beginning of the next year, on the 3rd of January, something like that. Where did they get this information? Honestly, out of clue. Well, maybe they have some of the evidence from the Russian FSB or Russian intelligence, but from my side, I don't see any sort of the markers which might show that Ukraine is getting ready for something. But you know, the Kursk operation from the very start was abrupt, unexpected, and the Russians didn't think that Ukraine would attack them with such a huge force, pushing them out from the border. So we'll see how it goes. For now, the situation is like that. You see that Ukraine also loses some of the vehicles, tanks. Yeah, the war is no-go without losses also from any kind of the side. The NOF reports tells us that allegedly there were some of the communication issues between North Koreans and the Russians, and because of that, North Koreans zeroed 3 of the Russian soldiers. It happened during the retreat under fire, according to the Russian Z channels. I'll cross-check it right now. So who was retreating, Russians or North Koreans? For now it's hard to say. And yeah, there were such cases in the Russian army. The famous one was near Vuhledar. The Russians were storming Pavlograd, so they sent something like 500 soldiers, armored vehicles and so on, and they were repelled by Ukrainian defense by the time, and they were returning back to their positions, and the Russians thought that it is the Ukrainian army goes on the counterattack, and they almost zeroed everyone, especially using artillery. So that stuff actually happens. Also, there were cases, well, not with such a big scale, but there were cases of the friendly fire in the Ukrainian army as well, especially at the very beginning of the full-scale war. Guys, some of the videos I cannot show you on YouTube. That's why I have my Telegram channel. You may find it out in the video description just below. It's for free. Just join my group and you'll be updated on the information coming from the other groups. Usually I just share it with some of the translation, so we'll have some of the alternate channel for communications if something goes wrong, for example with YouTube, because you never know. And guys, speaking about the alternate channels of communication, I also have my aviation channel. As you probably know, I'm a pilot. I used to be an airline pilot, now I fly general aviation. Well, nevertheless, if something happens, I always tell about it. Like, for example, it happened yesterday with Jeju Airlines, Boeing 737-800, exactly the same plane which I've flown before as a captain. So I already told about my initial review of the case, but we should wait for more information to come to conclude what exactly happened. Nevertheless, I collect facts and present those to the audience. That's what basically I do here on this channel. So please check out my pilot blog. It's in the video description just below. And by the way, about the case, then Russia shot down the Embraer 190 of Azerbaijani Airlines. It is understandable now for everyone that Russia did it. Even Aliyev, president of Azerbaijan, demanded already the compensation from the Russian side and opening the criminal cases against those who were involved in all of that. And he basically stated that it was the external factor caused by the Russian side. Yeah, it was understandable from the very beginning. You don't need to be an aviation expert to confirm that Russia shot down that airplane. Yeah, I already tell about the story in one of my videos, but here we have the reaction from the highest official of Azerbaijan. The crew were heroes. They tried to save the airplane, but unfortunately they couldn't save everyone, because this is extraordinary case. It's still a miracle that so many people survived the crash. Alright, we have a huge Christmas or New Year present for Ukraine from the United States of America. Tomorrow they will transfer lots of the military equipment with a value of 1.2 billion United States dollars, mostly ammunition for the air defense systems, but not only. So Ukraine urgently needs missiles, including long-range ATACMS ones. Because before there were reports that Ukraine is running out of the ATACMS missiles. There are just few left, so Ukraine needs the urgent supplies. So the supplements now from the United States of America will help Ukraine to hold for the next few months, and probably in the first part at least of the summer campaign. Because I honestly don't think that the war could be over the next year. And it seems like the future White House administration admits that it is not possible to stop the war in such a short time period as they promised. Many of the media wrote about it, so Trump's rhetoric changed a little. So now he is not certain about the war in Ukraine. Like, how can you be certain if you have no real influence on Putin? Then Russia still has some of the trading partners in Asia, and not only. Then the Russian oil tanker Ghost Fleet is free to go in most of the ports around the world. So without cutting everything of that, Russia will just continue this war. And sad thing that even Donald Trump is unable to do anything with it. There should be direction from other countries which continue to trade with Russia, but now they silent and continue their business. Well, for Donald Trump, it's one story, but we had the same promises from two of the Ukrainian presidents, two latest, Poroshenko and Zelensky. They really told people during their election campaigns that they will stop this war in a matter of hours. So Poroshenko 10 years ago, just at the start of the war in Donbass, said and promised to calm everything in hours. And this article is more than 10 years old. And then Zelensky wanted to become a president. He promised to finish this war by just stopping shooting. He was sure that he can communicate and deal with Putin to negotiate, but after a while, just in a couple of years, he found out that it's impossible to negotiate with Putin. I think for Trump it will be the same disappointment. So all of those presidents, leaders, they will promise you everything just to be elected. And it's not just about Donald Trump, as you can see. And you know, Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, almost every day says that Russia is not ready to negotiate. Like today he said that it is not okay if Ukraine will be just banned from entering NATO in the next 20 years. So Russia needs forever guarantees for thousands and thousands of years that Ukraine will not join NATO. Plus he said that Russia is also not okay with deployment of the European forces to Ukraine. Yeah, it's logical because in that case Russia would not be able to conquer Ukraine in military way, because if they attack the possible NATO soldiers in Ukraine, they might spark a huge war between NATO and Russia. So it makes actually impossible for Russia to occupy Ukraine, and Trump insisted before on that, some sort of the way out as a security guarantee for Ukraine, but Russia, as you can see, is not okay with that. Breaking news, ex-United States President Jimmy Carter lost his life. He was 100 years old. I think that he lived quite a good life. He done a lot to his country. And guys, you know, no matter if you are president or not, the end for everyone is the same. That is why my credo, I think, for this life is do what you like. Yeah, unfortunately now I cannot follow my own credo. Yeah, I divert to some of the philosophical topic. Let's continue to the news about Ukraine and not only. Like for example, this video filmed in Syria where rebels learn to fly the Russian-made helicopters. This is K-27 or maybe even K-32. This is the ground power unit, the electrical supply for this helicopter. So after the engine started, you disconnect that thing. And it seems like they finally made it airborne. Before there was the video shared how they learned to operate with the helicopter systems and basically fly it from the YouTube videos. Mostly, you know, from the flight simulator community, and I think that still there were some of the technicians who explained how to deal with this helicopter, at least with the systems. And here we can see even Mi-8, so flying helicopter is not an easy thing to do. There are also many of the other helicopters there. It seems like Israeli Air Force left some of those helicopters intact, and now rebels or ex-rebels have some of the vehicles to practice with. Alright guys, and now we have the new update from the deep state military map in many of the villages. Well, unfortunately we see the Russian movement in many of the areas, especially in Pakrovsk direction, so yesterday and today. The Ukrainian defense lines in this area almost non-existent, so Ukrainian soldiers dig their own trenches. It's the only way how they can defend themselves. Also there is one more Shevchenko, but on the south in Kurahovo direction Russia reached it already. In Kurahovo itself, I think there was also the change in the gray zone. And there is also the advancement of the Russian army in Vozdvizhenka, so yesterday and today. It's not far away really from New York, Toretsk location. It's between them and Pokrovsk, and the update in Toretsk is also not good. So for the last couple of days Russia advanced quite a lot in this direction, and now they create one more attack vector on the south, so they're moving with their standard gloves tactics. By the time I was reviewing the video, Deep State started to crash. I wonder why. Maybe they have many of the views. This website is currently offline. Okay. But what I know that there is the bad situation for Ukrainian army in Terny village too. Russians tried to get it for a very long time, and for the last couple of days they were successful in going to reach it. A story of the Russian sapper, you may find it on my Telegram channel, and it shows how unprofessional Russians really are out there on the front lines. Well, he tried to deactivate something, but instead he'll go home as Cargo 300. Cargo 300 is the term for the wounded army personnel, and he sustained kind of the significant damages, I would say. So no gear, nothing, and he was really reckless with the device. As you know, sapper may make mistake just once, and probably this time it was a Darwin Award mistake. And also news from Poland, they promised to compensate to Ukraine the energy loss in case Slovakia would cut the electrical supplies to Ukraine. That might happen after New Year, then Ukraine stops the gas transit to Europe. Now Slovakia tries to blackmail Ukraine, but it seems like it doesn't work. About the Russian tanker vessel Eagle S that is now suspected in cutting the cables underwater of the Gulf of Finland. Well, it is not just been arrested, but confiscated by Finland. They did it until the investigation is over. As you remember, they also find some of the surveillance equipment on board of the ship. Now, my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time. My friends, by the way, if you want to support the job that I do here on YouTube, you may also follow me on Patreon. I'll put the link for my Patreon page right in the video description below. Thank you so much for your support.